All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Evernest Real Estate Investor Podcast. I am your host, Spencer Sutton, and my two co-hosts are gone. I don't have Gray, I don't have Matthew, but I've got a special guest with us. I'm real excited to have David Sehar here with us. David, welcome to the show.
Pumped to be here, Spencer. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is great. So for those of you who don't know who David is is the what's your official title? I know it has something to do with institutions, but it's so far over my head I just don't even really know what to call you, David.
I think we've changed the name of it a couple of times, but right now I think it stands as Director of Institutional Property Management. Bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, it is a mouthful, but I like that because that's kind of sometimes the way we do it here at Evernest. We're trying to think of the title that best fits what you do on a day-to-day basis. But, David came to us several months back and he's in the Memphis market, and he absolutely took over all of our relationships with our institutional clients and performed at a very, very high level. And so we just thought, David, you're the person to make this happen. And especially as our relationships have grown with institutional investors over the past 12, 24 months, it's really expanded. So welcome to the show, man. I'm excited to dive into the Memphis market with you.
Yeah, let's do it. Memphis is a cool city. I've been here for my whole life. So I'm 31. So I've been here my whole life and been managing properties here for, probably 8 to 9 years now exclusively.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about that. I mean, I'm going to talk about my experience with Memphis first before you dive in. I haven't spent a lot of time in Memphis. My mom, though, was born and raised in Covington, Tennessee, which isn't far from Memphis. And then I have a college roommate who is the head women's basketball coach at Union University, which is in Jackson, Tennessee, which is not far from Memphis, Tennessee. So I've got, I've been around, been closely kind of associated with Memphis, just kind of growing up with friends. But I was actually in Memphis recently. I took my son to a Memphis Grizzlies game. I think probably the hottest basketball player in the league right now is Ja Morant.
Ja Morant, baby. That's right. That's right.
Oh yeah. We were pumped to see him play because he is quite an incredible player. And who were they playing? Oh, they're playing the Chicago Bulls. I'm a big MJ fan, Michael Jordan fan. So it was good to see the Bulls again. And we were actually there on MLK Day. We stayed downtown. And just the city is really fantastic downtown. I was really impressed with it. One thing I will say, David, I was disappointed to see that the Pyramid is now a Bass Pro Shop. Like I never expected that.
Yeah, I think it's like the 7th largest pyramid in the world, and it's being used to basically house, alligators and sell fishing rods and stuff like that. I don't know that it was the best use of space, but hey, someone had to do something with it.
Somebody had to do something with it. So I in 1993 or maybe 92, I can't remember, I saw Guns N' Roses in the Pyramid.
Wow.
Yeah, back in the day. So it was quite a great concert.
Just to date you a little bit, I was 3 whenever you went to that concert. Just so you know, depending on when of the year it was, I was either 3 or 4 years old.
Okay, yeah. Well, I was 20, probably 21. So it was 92. I was probably 21. So I'm 50, man. I'm 50. I'm way older than you. So you said I've lived here my whole life. You're like 31. I'm like, well, you barely lived there, man. You gotta. I'm just kidding. All right, let's talk about Memphis. And I'll say this: Memphis is it's well known across the country as being a great investor friendly market. And it draws a lot of attention from around the world. You have probably a lot of international clients as well. But something, and I think the first time I really started paying attention to Memphis was probably because I noticed that a group called Memphis Invest was there. Mm-hmm. And they've done a lot of great things. They sell a lot of turnkey type properties. But talk to me about your journey in real estate in Memphis and why you think Memphis is such a great city, why investors are attracted to it.
Yeah, it's funny. That's actually who I started my property management career with, was Memphis Invest. Worked for them for some time. Got hired in as a maintenance coordinator and just kind of been serving in different capacities my whole career essentially. But I mean, Memphis is cool. It's not a huge city compared to some others that have investment properties in it. But I mean, I think the metro area is sitting at around 1.1 million or something along those lines.
Yep.
The cool thing about it is that we do have, with being as kind of a smaller, large city, if you will, we've got 3 Fortune 500 headquartered companies that are here, which obviously that brings huge like white collar jobs, as well as I think the Memphis airport is the second largest in the world when it comes to cargo and transportation.
Wow.
So tons of blue collar jobs as well. So super diverse as far as it's a great city to have both A class and all the way down to like D and C class properties.
So what are the big companies? Obviously, I think FedEx is one of the biggest ones in the city. What else?
Yeah, FedEx, and then AutoZone has their headquarters here, and then International Paper.
Oh, IP. Wow. Yeah. That is pretty big. We actually have our director of maintenance for all of Evernest. I want to say he worked for FedEx and was stationed in Memphis, and then outside of Memphis, maybe somewhere, maybe they have a big plan in Mississippi as well.
Yeah, he lived in Hernando, which is just on the other side of the state line.
Gotcha. Okay. So that kind of sets it up. So you have a lot of jobs, a lot of stability. Then what else? Like, why do investors? Okay, so I get the idea that there's people moving there, there's a large rental population, I'm guessing, but really to me, it's kind of like some of these other tertiary markets that we're in, like a Chattanooga, like a Little Rock, like a Birmingham, where you have a good mix of, like you said, A all the way to D class.
I think the biggest thing over the years investors have been targeting here is just the low cost of entry and high yield. I mean, Memphis is known for having really high cap rates compared to other areas where people will invest in real estate. So I think that's the biggest draw. I mean, it's really what it all comes down to, is the numbers at the end of the day.
Well, let me ask you this, with numbers, like with higher cap rates, when I think of that, which we get that in other markets as well. And I get that Memphis can get very, very attractive. Do you find that there's also kind of a corresponding risk with the higher cap rates? So, I mean, are you having to invest in D-class neighborhoods to get the high end of that cap rate? And then what is the risk? What do people need to think about from a risk reward standpoint?
Yeah, I think the low cost of entry, it does have high yield, but again, you do have, your tenant turnover is going to be a little bit more. The houses here, and depending on the area that you're buying in, or especially in like the C class areas, are going to be older. I mean, you're talking 30, 40 years old. And so if you're buying something distressed, that you're going to have more upfront costs when it comes to getting it rent ready, and just over the years, just kind of deferred maintenance and things like that because of the age of the home.
So the age of the home, I get that. Like 30 and 40 years old doesn't seem too old to me when I'm thinking about like Birmingham. So we have some C-class areas where houses were built in the 20s and 30s and 40s. So are they relatively new, or are there some areas that are even older than that?
Yeah, I mean, one area that I like a lot, like the Colonial Acres area, that's with houses built in 1955. But that's also one of the areas that's seeing some of the highest appreciation in the city right now, just because people are going in and renovating those things, and they're selling like, for, 2-3 times what they were, 10, 15 years ago.
So what was the area, and what's the zip code?
It's Colonial Acres, and it's 38117.
Okay. And so tell me a little bit more about Colonial Acres. So you said the houses were built in the mid 50s. I'm guessing they're 3 bedroom, 2 bath houses.
Traditionally 3 bed, 2 bath, mostly carports, not a ton of garages. They do have a lot of 3-1s over there as well. But what it is it's just outside kind of one of those areas that does have super high price per square foot. So what happened was when people got priced out of that market, they essentially kind of went over to essentially across the train tracks and started buying over here. And it's just driven the property value up like crazy.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you don't know, sometimes you don't really even know where and when that's going to happen.
Right.
I bought I'll never forget buying an apartment complex. We were literally, so David, just like an area that you're describing, it was an area that the houses had appreciated. Houses were selling for $250,000, kind of older homes around the same age. So down the hill and across this train tracks, we bought this apartment complex saying, hey, this thing's about to turn. Well, a year later, nothing had turned, and we ended up selling that apartment complex at a big loss because we really didn't know what we were doing. This was me and my partners back in 2006 or 7. We didn't know what we were getting into, and we got into multifamily, especially in a D-class area. But yeah, so it is great. It's great for investors when it does actually cross over the train tracks and like improve the entire adjoining neighborhood.
Yeah, we actually, my wife and I bought our very first house there, and I mean, we just kind of bought it because it was what we could afford, and we lived there for about 4 years. And one of our neighbors put their house on the market for, I think it was probably $20,000 more than what we bought ours for 4 years later. And I just looked at her and I was like, babe, I don't know where we're going, but we're putting this thing on the market.
We're out of here.
Yeah, and we did it right at the right time too, because the bottom fell out right after that, and inventory dropped even more. So
where was that? What year was that?
That was 2000. That was 2020 whenever we moved.
Okay.
Yeah, bought it in 2016.
Oh, that's great. Now, I do want to talk real briefly about your wife, Gabby. She's also on our team, and she is our investor agent in the Memphis market. So you guys are a dynamic duo.
Yeah, we definitely a power couple for sure. She's just as familiar. She's been in Memphis, gosh, probably almost as long as I have. Maybe not quite as long, from Houston, but lived here so long it's home.
Yeah, well, great. Well, we're going to have her back on the podcast because what I want to do with her is I want to dive into deeper into some of these areas and hear about deals that some investors are finding. So David, tell me, you're talking to these institutions, what kind of, when they're talking, and I know you're seeing it in all different markets, like kind of their appetite in all different markets. Why do you think, besides big corporations, what do they love about Memphis as well?
Again, I think they can get houses here in such high yield. And on top of that, Memphis is also growing. Where we're really seeing a lot more investors buying, not Memphis Metro, but really like right on the state line, just over into DeSoto County in Mississippi. So like Olive Branch, Horn Lake, South Haven. It's one of those people have been sleeping on that area for a really long time. But it really is just over. I mean, I live in Olive Branch personally in Mississippi, but I work in the middle of the 240 loop in Memphis. So super easy drive, but everything out there is cheaper than what it is in Memphis as well. But you can still get houses for way less than what you can get in even Memphis.
Okay, so that's great to know. So is that DeSoto County? I'm looking at some of your notes that you sent me. Is that DeSoto County, Mississippi? Yeah. So can you pull that up on a map?
Yeah, so we got this is Memphis right here. This is the kind of the 240 loop where kind of you're going to find most of your population here. So I actually live here in Olive Branch and work.
Okay, so explain to the people listening to the podcast. So he's literally directly south of Memphis.
Yes, and it's a 25-minute drive from here to my office right there. But this entire area right here, man, there's so many houses, there's so many rentals, and there's so many people buying these up just because they've been slept on for so long.
So name these areas again, because so the people in the podcast can understand. So you got Olive Branch, and I know that's where you live.
Yep, Olive Branch, which is probably, I think it was voted the #1 city to live in Mississippi. And then we have South Haven, Mississippi, right here, which is
Yep.
literally just following the Tennessee State Mississippi line here. And then we have
Right.
Horn Lake right here. So as far as classes go, you're going to find more kind of A class properties here, some
In Olive
B.
Branch. In Olive
Yeah,
Branch. Hmm.
yeah, but lots of A class here, lots of newer construction going in here. Horn Lake and South Haven are going to be kind of in between that C class and B class.
Okay. And that typically is pretty sweet spot for investors is the C class.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. So are you finding like so people have slept on that area? Why have they slept on that area? Why hadn't they
I just
bought
because
there historically?
I think just the hype of Memphis has just shielded it from the investor market. Everyone's just
Gotcha.
talking about Memphis, 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 and you're not thinking if you go just over the state line, you've got all these diamonds in the rough that people aren't looking at.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. It kind of reminds me of we also have an office in Chattanooga, and we find investors who also like to invest in North Georgia, places like Dalton, Georgia, and places that are kind of like what you're talking about, kind of slept on.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk. Let's keep talking. So, where else would be a good place to invest here in Memphis?
Yeah. So if you're still trying to get good high yield property, you're
Yep.
really going to want to stay away from kind of, like I said, inside of the 240 loop, as we
Okay.
call it here. You're really going to want to get like on the outskirts here a little bit. So we've got this area, and let me actually type in the zip code here so you can see it for the people that are on the computer. So it's called Raleigh. It's
Hmm.
38128. I mean, this has always been a traditionally good rental area. We see a lot. I've managed probably thousands of properties in this area over my career. But the cool thing is you can kind of still in this area, even with prices going up so much in Memphis. I mean, I think that over the last 5 years, prices in just the Memphis area have appreciated almost 50%. But even here with prices going up, you can still kind of find those properties that you can kind of get that 1% rule.
Really?
Yeah. So
Yeah. So tell me about a price. Like, what would a price be? What is a typical? I mean, you don't have to give exacts, but what is the typical range there?
I mean, because it is connected to Bartlett, which would be the next zip code over. The comps do get a little bit skewed, but I mean, your average price over here is going to be anywhere from $70,000 to up to 130, 140, 150, probably up as high as 150. But you're still getting in those same areas, so you can still find those $800, $70,000, $800 rentals, 150,000. $1,300 to $1,500 a month in rent.
So is that the $70,000? Is that ARV? So after repair value, or is that hey, you're buying it kind of wholesale at 70, and then you've got some rehab, some work to do?
You definitely got a little bit of love to put into it.
Okay, yeah, to get it rent ready. So, but still pretty close to that good 1% rule. And then you said in the notes that I have here, you were talking about 70,000, also up to 150,000.
Yeah, that's correct.
And that's still all in Raleigh.
Yeah.
What about Egypt? I see Egypt on the map. What is that? Speaking of pyramids in Memphis,
yeah,
what is Egypt doing up there?
that's just again, it's just one of the areas in Raleigh. There's a school over here called Egypt Central, which is
Uh-huh.
why this is Raleigh, Egypt, and Egypt Central, which is why this is over here.
Okay. Okay. Very good. So if you're an investor and you're out of state, this C class area in Raleigh is definitely a place you want to take a look at. Then also south of Memphis, just over the state line into Memphis, into Mississippi, you want to definitely be looking at in DeSoto County,
Oh
which
yeah,
is Olive Branch, and some other areas.
Horn Lake, South Haven, Walls, Mississippi is another good one that's got some good little pockets.
Okay. What about A class?
Yeah, so A class, we're gonna go up to really just next to Raleigh. We're gonna go up to Bartlett and 38133.
38133. So this is essentially east of Raleigh.
That's correct. And you still like even in this even in this, sorry, my computer's wigging out here.
It's all right.
Even in this area, you're still going to find some A-class property or some C-class properties, but there's still a bunch of areas that have A-class properties. Like when you come up here, this is actually 38002, but all these neighborhoods up here,
Which
off
are
of Old
what? Go ahead
Brownsville.
and name them for the people
Yeah.
listening to this.
Yeah, so, yeah, Abington Woods, Delaney Square, like this whole area right here. These are all, there's a bunch of rentals up here, but there's still lots of homeowners up there. I mean, these are $250,000, $300,000 houses that we still see a bunch of institutional clients buying these and renting these out for high dollar.
Yeah, that's really important to know. If you can snatch up some houses in areas where there's still a large, large portion of home ownership, and there's a lot of great pride of ownership in the neighborhood, and you feel really, really good when you're driving through those areas. Like, wow, these are houses that people are buying and living in for long term. And those are great areas to snatch up some rental properties. What do you think they're paying for houses here?
They're still, they're probably paying anywhere from 200,000 to 300,000, but they're still,
Yeah.
they're still getting decent rental amounts from, $2,500 a month.
Oh, wow. All up to, so that's kind of on the high range, $2,500 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great to know. I mean, that is, and some people like what I love about Memphis is, from what you're telling me, it essentially is like all ranges. You could buy A class, B class, C class, doesn't even matter.
Yep. You really can. I don't manage a bunch of D class stuff. I try to stay away from it just because it gets really difficult to manage. But you can.
So what's
definitely
what's difficult about D class areas to
it? It's just
for property managers.
Yeah, for property managers, it's just a difficult. You have to just deal with a whole different thing. Whether it's crime, the tenant base is a little bit. Again, you're dealing with lower income tenant base, so collections are going to be a lot harder to do. Finding a good quality tenant to put in the property. So that's why that C class and up is really that sweet spot.
Yeah, I found the D class, and I've invested in a lot of D class over the years. One thing that I always try to tell investors is, when you have somebody who's in a lower income area, part of town, which there's nothing wrong with that. You just need to know when life circumstances happen, if they face some type of major issue in their life. It could be a financial crisis, could be a health crisis, could be a loss of a job. Those types of things impact them. It seems to be impacts them, and their ability to pay in a greater way than maybe somebody that's in a A or B class neighborhood.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. So what else do you want to tell us about Memphis, David? This has been great.
Like I said, I love Memphis. I've been managing properties here, my entire adult career. Again, I've helped people grow portfolios from 0 up to 100 something doors here, and that's from both finding properties and scrubbing the MLS and finding off market deals as well. So look, we're seeing low inventory here, just like everyone in the country is. We're seeing crazy appreciation, but the deals are still here. You can still find good high yielding rental properties. You just gotta have someone that's good at looking for them for you.
So tell me, and we may save this. I mean, Gabby can get into this a lot more, but how is she finding properties for investors?
Everything from scrubbing the MLS to working with wholesalers. I know a bunch of bird dogs here that go out and find properties, and we'll pay them a bird dog fee or something like that. We still see a lot of people and real estate agents here going, driving for dollars and finding distressed properties and knocking on the doors and getting in touch with the owner, and then they have pocket listings that they're selling to other real estate agents. So it's kind of a all hands on deck, trying to look everywhere we can.
And I think that really is what is very, very important for you investors listening out there. If you're interested in Memphis, you need to have boots on the ground. Whatever you do, whether you're finding properties through us, or you need to have somebody who actually knows the neighborhoods, knows the streets, can walk a property before you actually purchase it. I was just talking with our group, like Evernest. We had all of our agents in town today, and I was talking to them about how it was back when I was wholesaling houses. It was a lot different, right? So everybody I was wholesaling houses, but I was wholesaling it to investors that were living in my city in Birmingham. And so I would tell them, hey, I just bought this property, go take a look at it. They would drive by, I would let them inside, they could walk it. Now, that was back in 2003 to 2008. Well, guess what? Since 2008, out-of-state investing has exploded. The investors' ability to get information and to learn more about the areas has also grown, which is great. Like, I think investor education is, definitely needed, but it's never going to replace actually having somebody who's walking the house, looking at the house, who knows the area. Like, you will never do that. Like, we can do our best from these types of videos, podcasts, doing some other videos where we're walking down the streets and showing the areas, but really you need somebody to do that and to really describe things to you. So I think that's the importance of having somebody like Gabby on the ground. Boots on the ground is what we call them.
Yeah, to your point, I mean, Memphis is very much like street by street. You literally have neighborhoods that are, $500,000 houses that are literally one street away from houses that, are $50,000 to $60,000. And so I've literally seen investors buy in areas out of state, buy in areas based off of, like a Zillow algorithm or something like that, thinking that they were going to be able to get, $1,500 a month in rent for this property, but really it's closer to like a $900 a month property. It just happened to catch some comps from the next street over that it should have used.
Yeah. And that is what you don't want to happen. Like, I would encourage you, I mean, before you buy a house in Memphis, like, this is what I've had hundreds of conversations with investors where they're asking me about a certain street, because Birmingham's very similar. It's street by street, just like Memphis. And you just have to know where you're investing. People will call and say, why is this house so cheap? And I'll say, oh, you didn't know it's this house sits and it's surrounded by a bunch of multifamily where there's tons of loitering. You didn't know that. Yeah. But we knew that because we know the streets and we live here. So great point. I think that's really important to know. All right. Well, David, this has been great, man. I appreciate you being on the podcast episode. We're going to put this on YouTube for anybody who wants to see it. I want to encourage you, reach out to us. You can email us. You can email sales@evernest.co if you want to learn more about Memphis real estate. We also have a website that we put up. It's called, the URL is evernest.co/real estate partner. And you can go on there. If you're interested in buying properties, you're interested in talking with us about buying properties in any one of our markets, you absolutely can fill that out and we'll get back in touch with you. Something that's really cool, David, that we've been seeing more and more and more are investors who have properties in multiple Evernest markets. So it's been great to see people investing in Denver and then in Columbus, Ohio, or in Nashville and then in Atlanta or something like that. So very cool.
That is cool. Gotta diversify that portfolio.
That's right. I like it. David, thanks so much, man. Next time we're going to have Gabby on, and we'll you've given us a really good overview of Memphis, but then we're going to dive into some deals and pick her brain about what she's seeing on the ground there in the Memphis market. So thanks for being with us, man.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast, leave us a review, and we'll be back next week with another episode of the Evernest Real Estate Investor Podcast.